Happy politics, and welcome back to your favorite BC Politics podcast. And this time, you actually get to see our smiling faces. Jordan and I hosted a Twitter space on Saturday in the immediate, I was going to call it an aftermath. It wasn't an aftermath. Immediately after Kevin Falcon won the BC Liberal leadership. And today we're going to talk about that and much more, sort of face-to-face. And because I've said your name, I don't need to introduce you. I'm going to do it anyway. Joining me in a socially distant manner is...
It's Jordan. I work at ICVA. Nice to see you all.
It's earlier. Happy to see you.
It's earlier. I need my second coffee before I'm going to be perky enough to get going on this.
That's true. Due to other events of the day, we're recording earlier than normal. It's before 9 a.m., which apparently is early. I've been up for hours with a small child.
I've been up to. I've been up to. It's more. It takes a couple coffees for me to get the caffeine and the anger flowing through my veins that I need in order to
And this
podcast.
Is not what we're gonna. Is that a York University mug? Or New York University?
New York University. It's a souvenir from a long ago trip to New York. It's just the perfect sized mug. That's all I'm saying.
Oh, that's okay. I'm going to also sip out of my mug and let you enjoy this.
Oh, God almighty. Bo Levi Mitchell.
Yep.
We've
already lost some of our audience.
That's
Jillian.
That's right. Well, we should talk about the BC Liberal thing and bring them all back, because that's apparently what people tune in for, is our BC Liberal coverage. I thought it was my good looks, but apparently not.
I mean, yeah, unless they just have to imagine your good looks during the Twitter space. So, yes, we've been dancing around it because we talked about it like on Saturday, but the big news of the week is obviously there is a new leader of the BC Liberal Party in Kevin Falcon. He won as decisively as you can win in a ranked ballot with a 7-candidate field on Saturday. It was 5 ballots, but I mean, 47% on the first ballot is that's pretty darn close to a clean sweep.
He won by 19 points on the final ballot. Yeah. He was 19 points up on Ellis. And let me just say, Hamish Telford is a wonderful political science professor. He got quoted saying that, the party's very divided, and gosh darn it, like the results show it. No, Hamish, you need to go back. Go talk to your friends, the math professors at UFV. Get them to explain to you the system that was used. They'll tell you, wow, that was a pretty convincing landslide. And just, you want a divided party? Andrew Scheer led a divided party. Andrew Wilkinson led a divided. Kevin Falcon does not lead a divided party.
No, that interview, I read that piece. That interview smacked very much of someone calling him for his analysis, and Saturday night, and he wasn't watching closely, and just heard, it's 5 ballots, that means this. The math just doesn't work out that way.
What it was a sign of, the fact it went 5 ballots was a sign not of how weak Falcon was, because he wasn't. It was a sign of how weak the bottom few performed. When you're 6th, 5th place finishers have roughly 5%. It just takes time for those to drop off and to filter up to the top candidates.
Yeah, exactly. And then I put this in a tweet yesterday. It's not to pick on Stan Sipos, but there were only so many Stan Sipos ballots to distribute. And so, if you didn't win on the first ballot, it was almost inevitable that it would go at least 3 more. It could have happened in 4 ballots, I suppose, but we won't know until we get the detailed numbers breakdown, which I'm looking forward to.
Yes, no, absolutely. So anyways, Kevin Falcon, it's fair to say significant, convincing victory in this particular format. I'll be curious how the different percentages of votes in different ridings go, like you will be, and what lessons we can learn from certain regions. But nonetheless, a victory for Kevin. And man, talk about a guy who's hit the ground running. I thought day one of the Falcon regime in Victoria was a complete success by my measure.
Yeah, I mean, I just posted a piece to the Orca. It'll be live by the time you're watching and seeing this. And I had to rewrite it because I started writing it on Sunday saying, okay, here are the things that Kevin Falcon needs to do right away. And some of them were stuff that he checked off on the first day. It was, reach out to his leadership rivals. He's put the 3 sitting MLAs are now in prominent critic roles, and we'll get to that. Find a seat to run in. We talked about that a bit on Saturday. Well, that's already taken care of too, and he probably got the best possible situation with former leader Andrew Wilkinson announcing he was stepping down and Falcon will run in Vancouver Kilchenna. Done. After that, it was, I kind of have to do a new piece because these big things are still, those are the biggest things. And as I say, he's well on his way. He met the media on Monday and, he seemed energized and eager to get to work.
Yeah, watching the clips from that news conference, he seemed like a guy who is relaxed, already very comfortable in the setting he was in. I would say that day one press conference was better than any press conference Andrew Wilkinson gave. Gauged the media well, was very, this sounds bad, but there's a little bit of a game to dealing with the media, right? Like, you have to be willing to kind of go back and forth and start to build that collegiality that you need in order to, answer tough questions, right? Like, you have to build that kind of relationship. And Kevin, obviously knows the old timers there. Not you, Maclean, you're much too young to be an old timer, but he knows the Keith Baldrys and the Von Palmers and the Justine Hunters of the world. Although Justine's much younger than those two old ragamuffin guys, much younger. But you just kind of watching the clips, you felt like he was comfortable with himself and comfortable with them, and was answering their questions, but not straying off message. And it was a good news conference. And like, it's one news conference, and it's on arguably the best day he'll have, right? He's just won the leadership, and I think the toughest question was, what are you going to do about Val Litwin, which is not exactly a difficult question for a leader in that position to answer. When you're the winner, it's easy to be magnanimous. But it was a good day one. The critic list looks fine. The only one who was left out that I can see is Norm Letnick. He asked to be left out. He's working on some sort of entry-level housing. Oh no, sorry, John. Was it Rustad or Letnick? Oh, it was Letnick. Yeah, Letnick is working on some sort of, keeps calling entry-level housing project where he, in Kelowna. So, he asked to be left out because he wanted to focus a little bit more time on that. All right, no problem.
Fair enough.
The funny thing is, it's a little bit like deja vu. Shirley Bond will be the leader of the opposition until Kevin has a seat. And we just flipped one Kamloops guy for another. Peter Milobar moves to finance, no longer House Leader. Todd Stone moves in as a House Leader. So,
yeah, it's a funny little quirk of our system that you don't need a seat to be Premier, but you do need a seat to be Leader of the Opposition. And so, technically, Shirley Bond is still the Leader of the Opposition. You have to be in the legislature to have that role, but that doesn't mean that he is not the Leader of the party. He is. He was asked a couple things that stood out to me. Other relatively easy questions like, do you have any sense when the Premier will call the election once Wilkinson's resignation is finalized? And he just kind of sidestepped it, saying, listen, it's not my call. It's completely out of my there's nothing I can do about it. Obviously, I'd like to get here sooner, but, I'm not going to worry about it too much because there's nothing I can do about it. It was really the best answer. And speaking of John Horgan, Falcon has been the target of coordinated and persistent attacks from a variety of official and unofficial sources on the NDP for over a year now. And yet, it was interesting to watch Falcon. He just refuses to play down to the stereotype or the role that they want to cast him in. He's very gracious. He talks about how much he respects John Horgan and he wishes nothing but the best for him with his cancer recovery, and that he's a good man, and then they respect each other. And it's going to be interesting watching him sort of try and out-nice these NDP attacks. We talked about this on Saturday. Within seconds of him winning, they had actually released not one but two emails attacking him, whereas the Greens sent out a, Sonia Furstenau congratulates Kevin Falcon.
Yeah. I do find a little disingenuous Horgan in this, in that, Horgan will tweet out nice things about Kevin Falcon. Meanwhile, his party is, frantically copying and pasting every tired attack they can find. Bob Deeth being one. Look, backbencher NDPers trying to get into cabinet see this as a great opportunity to impress the bosses by chastising a man for serving in the legislature from 2001 to 2013, all to win the favor of people who ran the legislature in the 90s. Oh, the irony, but nonetheless.
Yeah, well, it's also a neat little psychological trick where, you're if by having the Bob Deeths of the world be your attack dogs, you're sort of implicitly saying that's the level that Kevin Falcon's at.
Yes.
It's not a question of him against the Premier, because the Premier's way up here.
Oh, totally, absolutely. But and the funny thing is, Falcon's whole thing is, I'm not going to respond to those dumb attacks, even by, the Attorney General, which generally has been a less political post in the parliamentary systems, maybe not for this one. But, he's not fighting with those folks. He's fully focused on John Horgan, and that's why, that's why his remarks are based on that. Wasn't it you who asked him that question yesterday about the NDP attacks? And I thought that was the only time that he got a little bit, just a little animated there.
I think that's accurate. I asked him, was he aware of these things, and what did he think of them? And he was most definitely aware. Mm-hmm. And he's not wrong to say, well, obviously, that they didn't devote all these resources to people they weren't worried about. Yeah. So it's flattering in a respect, in some ways. He's not wrong. This is clearly the person they thought they'd be facing, and they've been salting the earth for his arrival for over a year.
Yeah, no, exactly. So now throne speech today. Question period start again tomorrow. Or is there a question period on? No, it starts tomorrow. I don't know what Team Falcon will bring out as the kind of their first set of questions. There's a lot to parse, and who knows what the throne speech brings up. But I would have a suggestion on something, and it's this. Fraser Valley Current reported on the District of Hope. Hope, which was ravaged and cut off by the landslides and flooding in November. And at the time, once the BC government actually got their heads around that, oh my gosh, this is a big deal. They came out and said they would, bring some financial support. They'd be there for the people of Hope, which is great. The problem is Hope now is looking at the damage to their infrastructure, especially their diking system, and they need $10 million to repair it. Not to bring it up higher to standard, just to repair it to get it to where they could handle a 10-year flood problem going forward. By the way, the hospital is at risk, which is a provincial government-owned asset. And the Fraser Valley Current had a great piece about how Hope can't get any answers. They're being treated as basically second-class citizens. I would be very upset about this if I lived in Hope. Looking from where I live in Langley, and not having a direct stake in the rebuilding of Hope, but obviously wanting to see those people taken care of, I look at it and I go, I've heard this song before. District of Kent couldn't get money for firefighters who were evacuating people in the middle of the floods. Lytton is still, nothing has happened in Lytton, and these people have been evacuated to other parts of the province and are wondering if they'll ever get to go home, if they'll ever be rebuilt. And you see John Horgan and Mike Farnworth and all those guys at the time, oh, we're here for the people of Lytton, we're here for the people of Kent, we're here for the people of Hope, we'll do what it takes, we'll rebuild better than ever, and nothing.
At least not yet. Yeah.
Not yet.
That is a good topic. There's the family doctor shortage, which has become a crisis here in Greater Victoria. There's the overdose crisis, epidemic, which set another new record of deaths. And literally, as you were speaking, I got an email flash across the notification saying there is a disability rally tomorrow at the legislature, which also may give some hint as to questions that will come up. So yeah, there's a number of ways that could go.
Yeah, so you're starting to see, we're going into a throne speech in a few hours here.
Yep.
Haven't seen any preview stories about it. Haven't seen any trial balloons except John Horgan yesterday inexplicably deciding to embrace the World Cup bid after he pulled BC out of it a few years ago.
That is true.
Guys, you want to talk about bandwagon fans in sports? John Horgan is a bandwagon Team Canada fan, and we can prove it. When he thought Team Canada would never ever qualify, World Cup's a waste of money, forget, we're keeping BC out. Oh, now it looks like we're on the cusp of a golden generation here as far as Canadian soccer players go. Not really gold, but at least qualifying generation. He's all over it. Oh, World Cup, we should get in on this. We should talk to Seattle and Edmonton, make sure we're part of the bid. Come on, John. That's a bandwagon jumper. You're a sports. He's a sports fan. He wouldn't do that to his beloved Shamrocks. I can tell you that. He would be there from the start to finish. Anyways, what were we saying? Oh, throne speech. There just hasn't been any. I get animated on this stuff. There just hasn't been any hints, trial balloons,
No, nothing. It's been very quiet. It's been easy to forget that there would be a throne speech today. Usually there's a little more hoopla, and I mean, this has nothing to do with the NDP government, but there'll be a lot less pomp and ceremony today, if only because there has been nothing but protests in Victoria, and they're probably just inviting trouble at this point. And so this throne speech will, in many ways, just kind of come and go. We got the usual notice yesterday saying we could sign up for an advanced copy of the throne speech, and my first honest response was, why? I don't really need to read it in advance. I could be wrong. You'll watch this and there'll be some, thunderclap of a new announcement in the throne speech, but I doubt that.
Yeah, no, you do wonder, right? After 4 years, are they already running out of ideas or energy or excitement? Like, what exactly is going on? This is one of the downsides. Like, we talk a lot about John Horgan and his commitment to his cabinet, and he keeps them in their positions for a long period of time, which, okay, that's great. But then at the same time, they start to get, you start to become captive of the bureaucracy a little bit, and you start to identify things that you can't do more than you identify things that you can do. And take from someone who watched the BC Liberals for 16 years, you would see this from time to time. And the bureaucrats are always very quick to say, oh, you can't do that, you can't do that, you can't do that, you can't do that, you can't do that. So you start to forget that in government, you should be thinking about things you can do. And I do wonder if they're kind of trapped in that box a little bit right now where, they've made big promises, many of which they're not delivering on. Housing starts being one of them, for example. Are they kind of stuck in the mud a little bit? If they are, you can bet a guy like Falcon will be more than happy to point that out to the people of British Columbia.
Yeah, I mean, it's we're about to enter. The spring session is always the long one. It's the one that's sort of almost punishing towards the end, so we'll see. And it's also the one that, if you've got nothing to talk about in the first couple of weeks, it can be the longest slog. Debating the throne speech is one of the most empty and pointless things that happens in any democracy. But I suspect we're looking forward to at least looking forward with the air quotes for those of you listening on iTunes or Spotify to at least 2 weeks of that.
Yeah, and then BC budget on the 22nd. So
yes.
We will see where that all goes. Just before we go off Critic Roles, we should mention the three other leadership candidates who ended up with new Critic Roles: Michael Lee, Indigenous Relations and Reconciliation; Ellis Ross, Energy and LNG; and Renee Merrifield, Environment and Climate Change. I can already feel the tweets coming out from Bill Thielman picking on Renee for whatever she'll say about anything. Nonetheless, it's a sign. Those are obviously important portfolios. Michael Lee's an interesting choice for Indigenous Relations Reconciliation. Obviously a lawyer, worked very hard on the response to UNDRIP with the last administration. So I think that's the kind of file that Michael Lee can really sink his teeth into and enjoy. Ellis, look, there's no more passionate advocate for LNG in British Columbia. No offense, Christy. Than Ellis Ross. This guy lives, breathes, loves LNG, sees it as a pathway to prosperity for many communities because it was a pathway for prosperity for the Haisla First Nation and Kitimat.
I don't know this, but I suspect, having finished a strong second place, that Ellis Ross more or less had his pick of Critic Roles, and even if he didn't, this is probably the one he would have chosen. So yeah, it does seem like an obvious choice. Yeah,
and then one other guy I want to mention who, during the campaign, was very much, I think it's fair to say, Falcon's liaison with the caucus, and that's Trevor Halford, South Surrey MLA, first term. Has done some fantastic work on the mental health and addictions file. Really held government to account in a way that we hadn't seen BC Liberals do on that file. He stays in that critic role with TransLink. Halford's a very important person in Falcon land, and he's a friend. I'm a fan of Trevor Halford, so he's an all-around good dude who's in politics for the right reason. Happy to see him continue to have an important role in the party.
And, he has been, I think, even the NDP would admit quietly after dark, a very effective critic on that role. And not just because the NDP have not performed well on the file, but that would be an easy file to be a ham-fisted critic of. It's not a file you want to get too, divisively partisan on, because we're talking about people dying. Almost by definition, and so it requires hitting the right tone. And I think that Halford's actually done a really good job there.
Yeah, no, Halford's done an excellent job there. It helps that the minister has done such a piss poor job, frankly. You talk about a government that, when they were in opposition, railed against the premier of the day, laying every death at her doorstep. And then,
she has blood on her hands, was the quote.
Yeah. We're not making that up, folks. That is a literal thing the NDP said about Christy Clark when it came to mental health or to addiction overdoses. Now their record is far worse. They cling to this 1 year pre-COVID where it declined ever so slightly, but they should be embarrassed, humiliated by this record, and should be doing whatever they can to turn this around. Just like frankly, those of us in the private sector are trying to do. ICBA is a big wellness program. We talk about addictions with construction workers because they're more prone to this, especially self-managing pain from physical jobs. Like every construction association, BC's working on, like we're all trying. Government's help in this seems to be picking and choosing certain programs to put a little bit of funding into, but even then it's not a lot. There was an announcement, this is like really construction inside baseball for a second, but there was an announcement from the BC government that they were going to give, I think it was $1 million to the Vancouver Island Construction Association's program to fight addiction and to help mental health. And they're going to take that province-wide. Maclean, $1 million sounds like a lot of money. It's $4 per construction worker in the province of British Columbia. $4 friggin' dollars for a group of people who are the most at risk of 5 times the suicide rate of the average Canadian. The number one job that people have, the employed people have who commit suicide, construction, trades, like $4 a person, a hot dog, like way to go, mental health. Like, and it was like a big announcement. They had validators and the whole thing. There are literally dozens of programs now focused at this particular occupation, these trades workers. They picked and chose one, and again, I mean, like $1 million, like no offense, that's a drop in the bucket for what's necessary.
Yeah, and I think all parties in a long spell in opposition make the mistake of picking a file and saying that this has gone badly because they're bad, because they don't care. It's not a complex problem in their minds. It's just a question of, well, they made a choice. And for the NDP, that was the overdose file. It was literally just, you don't care, and that's why this is happening. And unfortunately, I think everyone would agree, because we're talking about people dying, things have demonstrably gotten much worse. And it's not because of government, but it certainly hasn't made anything better. Again, this is kind of beyond dispute. So it's a file that I think everyone needs government to do much better on. And hopefully, Jordan, as COVID-19 begins to move into our rearview mirror in terms of being a pandemic, we're not there yet, but as it begins to, God willing, this gets the attention it not only deserves but needs. Yeah,
no, I agree totally. Look, the one thing that we have not talked enough about during the COVID is the flaws that COVID has exposed in our healthcare system, not in our healthcare workers. God bless them; they are working their asses off. And I know friends of mine are nurses and doctors, and you see the wear on them, day after day, week after week, month after month, and how hard they are trying to stay positive in all of this. They are working their butts off. We clearly do not have the funding necessary in this country for healthcare infrastructure. I don't know how you can argue that when 130 people in ICU can overwhelm our system to the point where we're actually canceling surgeries for kids.
Yeah,
we obviously don't have enough. We don't have enough hospital beds. We don't have enough, and we're not doing enough training of healthcare workers. Like, we've got to do more on that, and mental health is a big part of that. That's there aren't enough mental health beds.
Hospital capacity. I mentioned earlier how you can imagine how an NDP opposition would portray a 1 in 4 people in the province's capital region not having a family doctor, a problem which is getting worse in the next couple months. In the Premier's own riding, they would be moved to outrage, and quite rightly so, because it's just not acceptable. I live in Victoria. We're very lucky to have a family doctor. Most of my friends don't.
Yeah.
And I do mean most, because it's something we talk about. Yeah. This is a crisis. Relying on walk-in clinics indefinitely is a recipe for missing key healthcare indicators that, Hey, I mean, in the interests of sharing, earlier this year, just a couple months ago, I had to get a mole removed right here, stitches, only caught because I have a family doctor and we do screening. If I wasn't doing these sort of elementary, self-care with a family doctor, that could have gone bad. And so I'm very lucky. I'm very privileged, and it's unacceptable that 1 in 4 people in this city don't.
Yeah, family doctors have become like, Green Bay Packers season tickets, right? You only get them by inheriting them from your parents, essentially. Like,
it's true.
We have an excellent family doctor, but we inherit him because, he was the successor to someone who delivered my wife. Like, that's really how long that relationship is. So,
like, delivered your wife when
she
was a baby.
Yeah. Yeah, or very close to, like, since she was a little kid, she went there. Maybe, actually, he delivered our kids, so maybe he didn't deliver her, but
well, still,
since she was like 5 or 6, they've been going there. And that's the only reason we have a family doctor is, basically I married into one. So, when you're young couples out there, I'm a wedding chaplain. I've married off 350 or so couples in my lifetime. Out there, when you're looking for a prospective spouse, find out what their family doctor situation is, because if they have one, they should be a little bit more attractive to you. I'm just saying, that's a helpful thing. You can marry into a family doctor.
That's the kind of thing you should put on, as a category, you should put on Plenty of Fish, right?
That's right.
Has a family doctor.
Has a family doctor. Ooh, it's better than money.
Did I just date myself? Is Plenty of Fish still a thing? Because Tinder's not really people getting married. I don't know.
By the way, I watched Tinder Swindler. On Netflix. It's a documentary. It is well worth the watch, except you'll be like shaking your head like, how does this guy get away with this stuff? Anyways, family doctors, big problem. And in the training side, there's problems too. My daughter wants to be a midwife. Well, there's one program in British Columbia that trains midwives, and it's very difficult to get into. Now, she's a couple years away from applying, because you have to have certain undergrad qualifications. But why do we, if midwifery is such a desirable field to go into, and more and more women are choosing to have babies delivered by midwives, why don't we expand that program, right? The market is speaking in a way. Why is UBC the only one? Why isn't SFU? Why isn't UNBC? Why are we training midwives up in the north? There are options there that we need to be looking at. But again, it all comes down to healthcare money. And to Horgan's credit, he's using his little platform as, what do they call it, chair of the Council of Federation or something?
Yes.
Whatever. It's the premiers of all the provinces.
Yeah.
And it's Horgan's turn to be the chair of it. He's using it to call on the Trudeau government.
Yes.
To better fund healthcare. I think the stat was it used to be a 50-50 deal, provinces and feds, and now the feds put in about 25% or 30%. It is funny that Trudeau, for all his spending, doesn't seem to be investing in this. But more has to be done. And clearly, if government is going to be predominantly a healthcare deliverer, which seems to be the system we're in, then we need to make sure it's funded properly.
No, exactly right. I mean, and whatever our strengths and weaknesses of our healthcare system, it's just simply true that we had, even pre-COVID, had vastly less ER capacity, hospital capacity than, the United States, and not just the United States, but places like the United Kingdom and other places that we like to compare ourselves to. And Canada has long lagged behind on those measures. And because we like to compare ourselves to the United States, and we take a lot of pride in single-tier, single-payer healthcare, I think maybe we haven't really examined some of the flaws in our system, and that is the biggest one. It's capacity.
Yeah, for sure. Hey, before we close, can I give some municipal shout-outs?
Absolutely.
All right. Municipal shoutouts. Dale Bumstead, mayor of Dawson Creek for the past 9 years, announced this week he's going to retire. He's not going to run for re-election. 67 years old, he says. He doesn't want to be mayor until he's 71. He wants to enjoy some retirement. Dale Bumstead is just one of the great characters in BC Council chambers. Outstanding guy, funny, authentic, kind. The kind of mayor in Dawson Creek, small town, relatively, the kind of mayor who, if there's a problem, if someone has a problem, shows up with a snow shovel and shovels the sidewalk, and just all around good dude. He has a big Christmas.
I understood from a lot of media in Toronto that was a bad thing, that showing up and shoveling people's snows.
He does it without Twitter following him. He's the kind of guy who does a Christmas light display every year at his house to raise money for charity. He's just all around good guy. He's retiring. That's a big loss for the region, for the province, and I wish him well. But no, it's a bit of a cliche, but it's a bummer that Bumstead is retiring for sure.
Oh, you were working on that.
I went there.
You saved it, and you delivered it.
In new mayor news, on our Twitter space, we talked about the Wells BC election. I was frantically clicking on the two Wells pages in all of the internet, trying to find out who won, and I was happy to see Ed Coleman, former Quesnel councillor, also the guy who ran Barkerville for years and years and years. Mm-hmm. Ed Coleman is the new mayor of Wells BC. He won in, talk about a landslide, 89-27, crushed his opponent. Not a single sign put up, just, called around to the folks in Wells and offered himself up. What a great election. Ed Coleman, though, because everything on earth connects back to Langley somehow. Ed Coleman, the brother of Rich Coleman,
The dynasty continues.
Yeah, seen a very funny, Rich tells a very funny story about how he and Ed are walking down the street of Quesnel and Ed's on council and like got, the couple folks giving like double takes like, hey, you're Ed Coleman, the counselor. And then looking at Rich, hey, you're Rich Coleman, the counselor. Wait a minute. Pretty funny. But congratulations to him. And we wait with bated breath for what will two of our other favorite mayors do. Are they going to run for re-election or not? I want to know, Laurie Ackerman, Fort St. John, Gabby Wickstrom, Port McNeil, are you running for re-election or not? Consider me a celebrity endorser for both of you if you do. You will get zeros of votes. Zeros of votes are going to come your way thanks to my endorsement.
At Jordan Bateman on Twitter, that's where you should tell them the answer.
Yeah, I'm like the Vancouver Sun or National Post of editorial board of endorsements. My endorsement means nothing, but I like you. I like you too, and I hope you run again.
Well, there you go. If you're listening or watching, mayors, you have some encouragement and an endorsement from a celebrity. And I didn't even use the air quotes, Jordan. That's how good a mood I'm in today.
Well, there we go. That's enough for one day.
That's enough. Until next week. He's Jordan Bateman. I'm Maclean K. Happy politics.